Gauravani pracharine nirvisesha shunyavadi paschatya deshatarine Jayasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Shloka. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Shiva Narottamam Daivim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavadina Ishtiki. 5.17.3 we are reading today from chapters called The Descent of River Ganges. Tatah sapta rishayastat prabhavabhignya ayam nanu tapasa atyantiki siddhir etavati bhagavati sarvatmani vasudeve anuparada bhakti yoga labhe naivo pekshitan yarthatma gatayo muktim iva gatam mumukshava iva Sabahu manam adyapi jata jata jutair udvahanti. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. The 7 great sages, that is Marichi, Vashishta, Atri, and so on, reside on planets beneath Dhruvaloka. Well aware of the influence of the water of the Ganges, to this day they keep Ganges water on the tufts of hair of their heads. They have concluded that this is the ultimate wealth, the perfection of all austerities, and the best means of prosecuting transcendental life. Having obtained uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they neglect all other beneficial processes like religion, economic development, sense gratification, and even merging into the Supreme. Just as Gyanis think that merging into the existence of the Lord is the highest truth, these 7 exalted personalities accept devotional service as the perfection of life. Purport. Transcendentalists are divided into 2 primary groups, the Nirvisheshavadis or impersonalists and the Bhaktas or devotees. The impersonalists do not accept spiritual varieties of life. They want to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord in His Brahman feature, the Brahma Jyoti. The devotees, however, desire to take part in the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. In the upper planetary system, the topmost planet is Dhruvaloka, and beneath Dhruvaloka are the 7 planets occupied by the great sages, beginning with Marichi, Vashishta, and Atri. All these sages regard devotional service as the highest perfection of life. Therefore, they all carry the holy water of the Ganges on their heads. This verse proves that for one who has achieved the platform of pure devotional service, nothing else is important. Even so-called liberation, Kaivalya. Srila Sridhara Swami states that only by achieving pure devotional service of the Lord can one give up all other engagements as insignificant. Prabodhananda Saraswati confirms the statement as follows. Kaivalyam narakayate tridashapur akasha pushpayate durdantendriya kala sarpapatali proktaha taddam strayate Vishwam Purna Sukhayate Vidhi Mahindradis Chakitayate Yat karunya kataksha vaibhavatam tam gauram evastumaha. From Chaitanya Chandramrita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has perfectly enunciated and broadcast the process of Bhakti Yoga. Consequently, for one who has taken shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the highest perfection of the Mayavadis, Kaivalya, or becoming one with the Supreme, is considered hellish, to say nothing of the Karmi's aspiration to be promoted to the heavenly planets. Devotees consider such goals to be worthless phantasmagoria. There are also yogis who try to control their senses, but they can never succeed without coming to the stage of devotional service. The senses are compared to poisonous snakes, but the senses of a bhakta engaged in the service of the Lord are like snakes with their poisonous fangs removed. The yogi tries to suppress his senses, but even great mystics like Vishwamitra fall in the attempt. Vishwamitra was conquered by his senses, but he was captivated by Menaka during his meditation. She later gave birth to Shakuntala. The wisest persons in the world, therefore, are Bhakti yogis, as Lord Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita. Yoginam api sarvesham madgadhenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yo maham same yuktatamo mata. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. Om Tat Sat, Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. This is a chapter called The Descent of the Ganges in the 5th canto. And it's a description of how Ganges descends from the highest region in this world. It is a description of how Vamanadev kicked his feet, his left feet, actually, his left leg was lifted, keeping his right leg down, and it pierced the coverings of the sky and made a hole through which Brahma actually worshipped the Lord. In one instance, it says that. And with his kamandalu, he sprinkled water and washed the lotus feet of the Lord. And that waters became Ganges. Now here we are also hearing that from the upper regions, that Ganges water, which was touched by the lotus feet of the Lord, started falling into the Bhumi. So it came across so many places. It fell on top of Sumeru mountain. And from there, it cascaded down. There is a big description in the structure of the universe, how it is and how it flows down. There are 4 different branches in the heavenly planets. And then from there, it's coming down. It comes down in 4 different ways. It flows down in 4 different directions, Alakananda, etc., etc. And then it is appearing here in Bhumi, in Bharatavarsha, as Ganga that we are seeing. So Ganga, what we are seeing, has got many more aspects, higher and higher aspects to herself. But the point here mainly is that Ganga is coming from the washings of the lotus feet of the Lord, which means it is Charanamritam. And it is honored as such by everybody. That is why it's mentioned, if you take bath in the Ganges, you get all your sins cleaned and you can get love of Godhead if you pursue devotional service. So Ganga is called Patita Pavani or Pavani. She purifies the entire population of the earth planet. It's a great boon. It's a great opportunity given to the residents in this world. So these great sages, knowing that, keep the water on the tufts of their hair. That means they always keep Ganga on her head. Because it is Charanamurtam. Akala Mrityu Harinam Sarvavyadi Vinashanam Vishnum Padodakam Pitva Shirasa Dharayami Aham. Every day we take Charanamritam and the blessings, the mantra we chant that Akala Mrityu Harinam, you will never die untimely death. Sarvavyadi Vinashanam, all types of diseases and ailments will disappear by taking Charanamritam. Vishnum Padodakam Pitva, if you drink the water coming from the lotus feet of Vishnu, Pitva, to drink, and then place it on your head, Sirasa Dharayami. Dharayami means to hold. If you hold it on your head, which what I'm doing every day. So this is the process. They are all the sages here, all the 7 sages, Saptarishis, obviously know this, and they are also doing the same thing. We are protected in great ways because we do that every day. Watering the tulasi, accepting Charanamritam in the form of water, Ganga, and in the worship of the Archa Vigraha of the Lord, like we're doing for Jagannath. All these things are shortcuts for getting great benefit in devotional service. They are very purifying. So it says here that it is the ultimate wealth, the perfection of all austerities, and the best means of prosecuting transcendental life. Having obtained uninterrupted devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they neglect all other beneficial processes like religion, economic development, sense gratification, and even merging into the Supreme. So, devotional service is the perfection of life. And anything that is connected with devotional service that will help me in devotional service, I shall fully embrace that, accept that. That is the constant instruction that we see throughout in the Bhagavatam, coming to us even now from these great sages who are showing us how to actually take advantage of Mother Ganges. So luckily for us, whenever we go to Mayapur, we are able to take bath in the Ganges. We actually revel in doing that. All the devotees who are there can regularly take bath in the Ganges, which many of them do. The chanting of the holy name, taking bath in the Ganges, residing in the holy dham, hearing Krishna's glory, seeing the deities and worshiping them, you can just go back to Godhead. You can just go back to Godhead. For some of them, it is mentioned who don't have the Ganges next door to you, you can also take bath. Gangaicha Yamanaichaiva Godavari Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jaliyasmin Sannidhim Kuru. We invite all these great rivers into the water before we take bath, and then we take bath, and while we take bath, we can also chant Ganga, Ganga, Ganga. It's mentioned that if you chant the name of Ganga itself, Ganga is present. So when we take bath, many times devotees chant Ganga, Ganga, and they chant this mantra. In this way, they can take a Ganga bath every time you take bath. And this way, constantly, you are protected, purified, and kept close in your service to the Lord. So Prabhupada has taught the whole world how to take maximum advantage of the human form of life by engaging in devotional service and all these devotional activities. So sometimes we may think that, especially for people in India, we think that these are not of great value nowadays because of westernization of a lot of our values. We don't consider these things to be great. How the Yamuna is polluted with factory waste and effluents and all sorts of rubbish. The whole drain of the whole city goes into the Yamuna. How we treat the Ganges. All these things show us to great extent that our value for these things are so low. But when we read the scripture, we see what great value it is. It's meant to be kept on your head constantly. I don't think people, some of them, would like to do that if they go and see the condition of these rivers. Of course, in spite of that, Ganga is always purifying. That's a little external thing. But materially speaking, we could respect these great personalities like Ganga and Yamuna, who are offering themselves as devotional resources. We can respect them better. We can really respect them better. That's why in India, we see that values for all these traditional amazing aspects has petered down, gone down to a very low level, and also to a dangerous level, dangerously low level. Prabhupada has come to rejuvenate, rekindle, and reignite these sensitivities. And he has opened up the vista, especially to devotees from Europe and America and Africa and all these places. And in this way, he has created value for it all over the world. And therefore, many Indians have now started getting value for it. Similarly, for the Bhagavad Gita, similarly for temple and deity worship. If not for Prabhupada's movement, mostly everything will be slowly killed and dead. Because many great, so-called great people don't know the values of all these things. And who will perpetuate it? So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's contribution in explaining these things and explaining the very subtle spiritual values that these wonderful personalities like Ganga and Yamuna have, then also explaining that they are personalities and we should honor them, we should respect them, and the type of service that they're doing to humanity should be highlighted. These are all values that we need to revive, especially in the great country of India. And Prabhupada has done very strategic moves by making this known to the whole world and the whole world appreciating it, which means that India cannot be without appreciating it because it's the origin and the cradle of this civilization. By forcing us to revalue and take a revisit and relook at these amazing value systems. Prabhupada has made a revolution in this way. So we are very thankful and grateful to great personalities like Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinoda Thakur, and all these great acharyas, for in modern times giving us a clear understanding and developing values for it. Still, in India, there needs a lot of work to be done. And the westernization and the sort of, you call them iconoclastic, means they think all these traditions is useless, brainless, sentimental ritual without any rationale. That's the type of stuff that the Westerners dumbed the whole Indians with throughout their colonizing rule, and before that the Mughals, etc. And that hangover is still there in all the Indians. And they value all Western thoughts and concepts over and above their country. They continue to stay here, and vested interests definitely are working along with Maya and Kali to make these things happen. If you actually study the Bhagavatam, if you actually study the Bhagavad Gita, you can understand that these things are true. Someone may question us whether these things really have value now. They have value for people who understand the truth. They won't have value for people who don't care to understand, who are completely absorbed in an artificial Western idea, which in itself and of itself is not very valuable, except for an immediate value in terms of your material life, in terms of technology, in terms of other things. But if you look at the natural situation, the world is crumbling because everything is going by rationale and the science of certain things, etc. But personality, personalism, and that feeling of respect, interconnectedness, all that is eroded to a great extent. So what you are inside comes out outside. And the type of consciousness that human beings have, especially those who are leading, who are elite on the top, is not at all conducive for maintaining a good, healthy atmosphere in this world, in harmony with nature, in harmony with man's original position, in harmony with God and his laws. It is out of sync. And therefore, in such a situation where we can expect somebody to think like this, that Ganga is a personality respect-worthy. So when we read these passages from the Bhagavatam, sometimes to some people it looks like mostly irrelevant to me and to my situation now. I don't stay close to the Ganges. As far as I know, the Ganges is the most polluted thing. All sorts of effluents flow into it. And it is more like a massive drainage canal getting dried up very fast than something that I would like to take and keep on my head as of now. And if you look at it from their viewpoint of view, they make a lot of sense also. If you so value it, they're asking, why the hell are you dumping all these things inside? And why the hell are you people keeping quiet about it? So whatever the Britishers did to India, the Indians, after some time, started believing what the Britishers said and did about India. They got psychoed. They got brainwashed into thinking that, yes, this must be true. We are not advanced. We are not greatly progressive. If we continue thinking like this, we will not be. And all those things were dumbed down. And the Britishers left. They knew that they have programmed this place enough. Then India started doing the greatest damage to itself after independence, I would say. That's when it started acting against its own tradition very actively. It is at that time that Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, in that climate, could not establish his movement here, and he went to America. So he understood strategically that if I go to America and bring Americans who do this, then only you will understand. So Prabhupada had a powerful marketing strategy. So he went to America and brought his Americans and started teaching Bhagavad Gita here, leading Kirtan and Bhajan, eating Prasadam, leading a nice devotee life, and showing and showcasing his Western disciples. And that had a tremendous effect. It had a tremendous effect. Many Indians woke up to their true tradition and moorings and took it up very seriously. This is a great turning moment in Indian history, actually. After so many hundreds of years of Mughal rules and British colonizing and everything, slowly breaking ground. I'm sure in the future, Ganga will flow, great force will be completely purified, and many, many devotees will work on these things as long-term projects. Understanding the value, respecting Ganga for what she actually is worthy. So the story of Ganga is a big story. I don't think that we should go through that now. But the Bhagavatam describes, the Mahabharata describes, many places it's described. Vishwamitra Muni will describe it to Rama and Lakshmana when he takes them. So in this way, there is various descriptions of Bhagirathi, Her name is also Bhagirathi because King Bhagirath brought her after great penances that he did. There's King Dilip, then Amshuman, Asamanjasa, all of these great personalities are involved. And the 60 sons who got burnt by Kapila, put into ashes because they accused him of stealing the sacrificial horse. And how, in order to bring them back to life, Ganges was required. So generations of this particular king meditated, and finally Ganges came down, and she had some conditions that who will bear the force of my descent? And Lord Shiva agreed to do so, and he tied her up in his hair. This is called Gangadharan, who bears Ganga on his head. Only he could take the force of Ganges' descent, and he released her in a controlled way. That's what we see is the Ganges flowing. And then there is a big history to Ganges joining the ocean in Ganga Sagara. So these, when we hear all these stories, we don't just think that they are just some rivers flowing, like you learn in so-and-so civilization, you know, the Euphrates and the Nile and the, you know, Yangtze Kiang in China and the Sindhu River, the Indus Valleys. It's not like one of those rivers around which a civilization built and a type of historian academic study of it. That's not enough. If you study here in India, you'll get to know so much about the Ganges. Ganga Mai ki, they will say, and they'll pay obeisances to Ganga and take bath in her and drink her waters and do abhishekam of the deities with this thing. And so many things are done, and you get deeply into the whole understanding of who Ganga is, what personalities they are, and how great personalities they are. A very personalistic view comes. And that's when devotees, with devotion in their heart, they understand that this is the washings of the lotus feet of the Lord, Charanamritam, and they honor it. So this is great understanding. I don't think it is simply faith-based or blind or sentimental or ritualistic at all. It is just that there is no depth in what you're trying to say. But in each one of these things, there is so much of depth. Why do we worship Ganga? Right? People think that we are foolish worshipping the Ganga, worshipping the cow, worshipping the hill, Govardhan. If you don't understand the philosophy, all these things will look downright stupid. And there's no doubt about it. You should feel, I can understand why you should feel that. But if you go through the Bhagavad Gita, if you go through the Bhagavatam, if you go through Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will get a completely different understanding. And that understanding is not something that you should not approach because it has no rationale, it has got some phantasmagoria or fantastic statements in it. That is, Shiva tied up the whole Ganges in his head. But all these things is true. It is true. And why should it not be true? Because it is in today's world and in today's experience, it's not possible. So everything that happened in the past that was possible at that point of time is subject to the possibility of it happening now for it to be accepted as truth. And that is not at all a proper criterion, because civilization has changed, people have changed, situations have changed, and therefore certain things are not applicable now. It's a matter of detail. But this doesn't mean that we should give up our great tradition, which helps us to understand these things in such great depth. It's not simply a story alone. It's a happening. And people lived on this planet like this. History is proof of it. All these wonderful books of the Bhagavat, the Bhagavad Gita and the Puranas also speak about the history of this universe. Why only of India? Hmm? So, this is not something that is to be thought of very casually. So, what these rishis and sages are doing, they are highly educated, very highly realized persons, and they are keeping Ganges on the tuft of their hair. Means, why? Why would highly educated people do this? Unless you can, of course, label them as some ritualistic so-called high priests following religion of today and label them like that and discard them. It's a very, very unfair comparison to when people think of religion nowadays, they see religion only through the eyes of Christianity. Christianity, the largest religion in the world and the biggest following and the oldest, maybe, they think, according to modern historians. But actually, Christianity has got a very bloody, hoary history. The colonization is part of whole Christianity and evangelism, aggressive evangelism done by them. Before they came here is the Mughals, 1,000 years. Mughals, they are barbaric, marauding, pillaging hordes of people who came here. And the soft culture, the Vedic culture of respecting the Ganges, the Yamuna, respecting each other and respecting everybody and having that culture was completely toned down. And today, we are very puny individuals. We don't understand the weight and the volume of the tradition. We can scratch on the surface a little bit, but this is an amazing, great tradition with deep philosophical imports and understanding. So only if you read these things, you will understand. Only if you associate with devotees, you can understand. And you can have a dialogue, discuss, rationalize everything. Get to know why it is what it is, right? Unfortunately, even Indians are not doing that. They're immediately jumping onto a platform of judgment based on Western philosophy and Western culture and judging Indians, their past and everything. But there are many others also who don't belong to this place, but who have made a study and do appreciate the amazing philosophy, culture, etc. Today, Indians will define Vedic culture as Hinduism is a way of life. I think it is they have gravitated to a very low level, compromising many, many things because they themselves don't know and they have not delved into the scripture or tried to understand their own culture and the tradition and the history properly in the proper perspective. It's a shame that our history textbooks don't contain the real history of India. And they're all history textbooks written by the Britishers, glorifying all the British colonists and giving very less importance to India and India's great personalities who have contributed in a great way. Even today, we teach the same history. And in this way, gradually, the generation of people have forgotten the real history of India, forgotten the real tradition. So in these times, situations and circumstances, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has descended to establish the original tradition. And there's a lot of work that we need to do to bring people up to speed to this great culture of Krishna consciousness. So whenever we read these passages, don't think they are irrelevant to us. They are very relevant to us. What anxiety I get when I read these passages is how wonderful, what great value systems, and how much more we need to do to bring this to people. What strategic communication we need to do to bring people up to this speed so that they can understand actually what it means that the sages are doing here. The sages are equivalent to today's great scientists and philosophers and thinkers, everything. They are equivalent and they're even better equipped those days in terms of understanding things. Highly intelligent people dedicating their life to study, to training others, to worshiping the Lord and everything together only. So they are consultants for the entire society. The Brahmanas, the rishis and sages, they were big time consultants. You talk to them about anything under the sun given in the Vedas, and they give you consultancy immediately, free, no charge. Education should always be free. There should never be any charge. Possessing information doesn't make you very great. Education has been commercialized, and possessing information has become very important some time back. Now it is all data and mining the data and exercising and doing work with the data. So actually, knowledge as such in the material world has become useless because anybody and everybody has it in the form of information and data, right? So treating Vedic tradition in this mechanistic way doesn't get us anywhere. It misses out many important factors. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's contribution to glorifying the Ganges, to building a great home for the whole world on the bank of the Ganges, all shows a great plan, very well thought out. Sometimes I feel that I may be the great impediment in getting these things done myself. So we have to understand things in the proper context. It's sometimes difficult because we're coming from a paradigm, the type of education, the type of economy, the type of surrounding, the type of people, and they're being driven in a herd mentality. We're giving them chance for individual expression, free thought, questioning, and probing into our culture. So Prabhupada started a movement where we can do that. And all these great topics of why the Ganges is great and what is her importance and how she courses through the whole of India and gives great benefit, how she is manifested as Kaveri in the south, as in other places in different ways, and how she is actually benefiting human society, and how Indians especially can get the maximum benefit. All these things are important topics. We can't avoid them. So Ganges and its history is something exciting. Maybe on some other day we can actually recollect the whole history and the story of the Ganges River. Similarly, there is a lot mentioned about all these places. They are not ordinary places, definitely. Tirtha Sthans. I had the opportunity to go to Yamunotri, Gangotri, and all these places, original source of the Ganga, coming in the Himalayas, and actually visiting and trying to understand who is Mother Ganga. So it's a very exciting experience. We hope that someday we'll be able to take you there and go to the mouth of the Ganges, where she starts coming out. And it's very amazing to see these places. We even took a bath in this place. It was freezing cold, -1 degrees or something lower than that. The water was -2 or something. We took bath in that -2 degrees water. It was frozen like nothing. That time I was wondering, I remember taking a dip and wondering, wow, so cold. All this is true? That this Ganges is flowing from the higher planets, is coming from the lotus feet of the Lord, and I'm able to take bath in it. How do I bring this to my reality? I remember sitting there trying to get the heat of the sun after this bath and looking into the gushing Ganges. With great force, it's gushing out and coming, and wondering a personality. And I offered my prayers to Ganga Mata, feelingly, that I'm not able to understand this. Please drill in me the understanding. But I have full faith in what Prabhupada has said, what the Bhagavatam is saying, what the Bhagavad Gita is saying. But to close this gap of faith and understanding and doubt, everything can be done only by an association of a pure devotee. When we associate with a pure devotee like Prabhupada, he brings everything very close, makes everything possible, and puts great faith into us. And we happily are able to invest in that. The association of a devotee makes all the difference, a pure devotee's association. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada's association has given us all this understanding. And there's a lot of things that we could do to help this movement to expand and bring it to many others by closing this gap, educating people in Krishna consciousness. So we need hundreds and thousands of devotees to do this, patiently relying on Krishna, and we should all be ready to do that in a broad way, with broad thinking, keeping the bright side of Krishna. Om Hare Krishna, Prabhupada Ki. Anybody has any question? You can also share in the chat if you have. Any question? Okay. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki.